Hi, welcome back. We're going to go over chapter 12, which is specifically going to go over organizing and outlining your presentation. And so we're going to go over why is organization important? How do you develop your introduction? How do you develop your body? And then the conclusion. And so, why is organization important? So, it helps audience members select, attend, understand, and remember your message. If you remember the different stages of information processing, the more you organize your the layout of your speech, the easier the audience will be able to process and digest that information. It also helps the speaker know where they're going with their message. So for example, how do I organize the presentation? Sorry. So there's obviously an introduction, body, and conclusion. And so in the introduction, you'll basically tell them what you're going to tell them. The body is what you tell them, and the conclusion is tell them what you've told them. Oh, I can't see. There we go. Tell them. So for the introduction, within that, there's 4 different aspects of what you are hoping to achieve. And so you want to gain the audience's attention. You want to give the audience a reason to listen. You want to establish your credibility, and you want to state your central idea and initial preview. And if you remember in chapters 11 and 14, we went over the central idea and initial preview for, for the presentation. So there are a couple different ways that you can gain attention for your speech. You can start this off by telling a story. You can quote a famous person or an expert. You can cite a statistics using literary references, and that means basically like poetry, books. It can be really anything in terms of literature references, and then asking the audience a rhetorical question. Um, Although I will say asking audiences rhetorical questions sometimes can backfire. So I would be a little precautious about using rhetorical questions. I guess it's not as obvious now that we're fully online, but if you ask your audience a question and the room is just silent, think about your professors who ask questions, and even if people know the answer because no one is responding, it just kind of can create a tense aura. I guess is the easiest way to explain it, and it can just end up taking away from your speech instead of providing more to it. And so some things you want to avoid in your presentation and when you're introducing your topic is being like too I hate to say too explicit because I feel like explicitness is good, but it can kind of get boring and repetitive to be like hi, my name is blank, and today my presentation is going to be on blank, or today I'll talk about blank. But as you kind of use your attention getter, that is hopefully what will key us in, and then your central idea will tell us what your topic is going to be about, and your initial preview will preview all of it. So for the body, there's 3 different styles that you can organize your outline, and that is chronological, topical, and spatial. So these different patterns represent the different ways that you can organize your speech. So for example, a chronological speech would be the the life of Kobe Bryant. That would go in a chronological order because you would most likely hallmark moments throughout his life, like birth, success, death. Um, Topical will be like the wine example we had in the last lecture video. So going over how red wine is made or how Pinot Noir is made, that would be a topical organization because it's going over different aspects of a subject. And then spatial is a bit harder to understand. That has to do with space. So for example, if you did a speech on how um, New York's living situation is inhumane because of um, like if you do a speech on New York, New York's density population, it would be a spatial organization because you're going to go over how the space is divided and how that's used. The guidebook uses the stallions as a really good example, and within I also kind of gave the examples in the last lecture video, but they will also have 3 of these each examples for chronological, topical, and spatial. They have 1 of each in the guidebook for samples to look at. And so signposting. Signposting is very, very important when you're doing speeches. It's going to be a verbal or nonverbal signal that helps the audience following along. This can be in previews, in transitions, and summaries. And when you look at the sample, and I'll also upload a template so that you guys don't have to worry about like typing in all the extra stuff when you start working on your outline. It'll automatically include some transitions and summary aspects and previews as well. These are kind of phrases such as, now that I have covered blank, I will go over blank, first, second, third, any of those extra transitions to help signal the audience where your speech is and where it is going to go. All right, like I said, transitions are the key to organization. It's telling the audience where you've been and where you're going. So in this speech, you will need 4 transitions. There will be a transition to your body, and there will be a transition between your main 3 points, and then there will be a transition to your conclusion. So moving on to the conclusion. The point is to be redundant. You're going to want to transition, summarize, and then be memorable. Your conclusion is going to be what your entire speech was about, but nice, tight, compact, concise, and digestible for the audience. Ideally, your conclusion should be able to kind of stand alone in a way, similar to the introduction, in that it will explain your speech without having to go into detail. All right. And so the book recommends to avoid abrupt endings, don't ramble on, and don't add any new information. You're just going to want to go over what has already been discussed. And for example, you don't want to end your speech with, yep, that was it. That was my speech, because then it takes away all the work you did. And instead of remembering what your speech is about and how you presented it, the audience is going to go, oh, okay, you're welcome. And while I am all for thanking people, it just kind of creates a disconnect, and it can feel weird thanking the audience for listening to you when, I mean, let's be honest, you have to. But I guess while the sentiment is good, it is important to recognize that it can actually just take away from the memorability of your speech. And so preparing versus delivering. A preparation outline is basically going to be a detailed outline of your central idea, main ideas, and supporting material. Your speaking notes are going to be a synthesized and concise version of your outline. It is only going to have the essential information to deliver in your speech. And so suggestions for speaking notes, I would recommend including the introduction and conclusion in abbreviated form, and including supported material and signposts with delivery cues. And like I mentioned before, there are also examples of the speaking notes in the guidebook as well, along with outline examples. I would highly, highly, highly recommend making sure to look over all of the examples in the guidebook because they're just very helpful in gauging where and how to complete your own speech. And so I hope that this lecture was easy and it helped as you are going throughout the process of developing your speeches.